Hello, fiends, friends, familiars, and felines. This is Matt Orozco here with Macabre Daily, and I'm so excited because I'm joined today by Tim Cruz, who is the co-writer and director behind the film Don't Let the Cat Out, which previously had its premiere at Panic Fest earlier this year and is going to have its UK debut this Friday, August 22nd at 3:15 at the Leicester Square Theatre for Fright Fest. So, Tim, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me. I know you're getting ready to go to the to London. So I know this is in between errands, but appreciate the time.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, and happy to talk about the film. And you know what? It's all good. Thank goodness for technology that
Right.
we can have incredible conversations anywhere we land.
Yep. Anywhere we've got a cell phone service. And I even have, I think a friend has joined me because they knew that we were talking about don't let the cat out. But we're gonna have Cassie joining us today.
Yeah,
And
see,
and before I so my first question for you is a pretty basic one, Tim, which is can you talk a little about your inspiration for the film? I know you wrote it with Anthony Del Negro, so curious to know kind of what you guys were thinking when you came up with the idea.
for sure. So there's 2 points of inspiration. There is the origin of the script, which is from Anthony. Anthony was hired by a friend to house it, and when he gets to the house, he sees a list of notes and instructions on how to care for a cat, which, to his surprise, was never discussed. Like, you think that when someone hired you to house it, it would be like, oh, you're here to take care of my cat. But, he just ended up having to, you know, do all the things on the list. But for him, he says that he never actually saw the cat throughout the entire time. He just would hear it off in the distance, but he never physically saw it. And so, in his wild imagination, he was like, "Well, what if that cat was human?" And so,
As you
he
as
went
you as we go today, that's how we all go to.
exactly. And so he went down that rabbit hole, and he wrote it down. He wrote a script out of it, and then he had we had done a movie together, and he talked about this cat movie he wanted to do. And when he pitched it to me, I was initially like, well, I would be in post on Ladybug, and I'll be off in Europe, and so I don't know if I could do it. And he already had another director in mind for it, but unfortunately things didn't line up for that other filmmaker. And so he was like, "Hey, would he came to me and said, would you do it?" And I said, "Well, um, I was originally saying I don't think I should double up. But every time he would talk to me about it, I was in Paris and in front either at the Black Cat, which is this cafe and bar that I hung out at, or I was at a museum looking at one of the Chat Noir posters. And so I was like, I guess this is coincidence and a sign. So I took a stab at the script, and I kind of put my twists into it. A lot of the mythology, a lot of the kind of like the characters of, and centering around the themes of the human desire to avoid grief and the human desire to kind of avoid the inevitable and the kind of destruction that we set upon everybody around us when we refuse to you know go with Mother Nature.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I it's such a pertinent point, I think, because I've grown up with pets my entire life. My mom, bless her heart, is very attached to these animals, and so when they pass, every time it feels like the world has just ended. And I understand the feeling, right? I think we grow so attached to animals because they don't have all the things that we hate about humans. All right. They listen by default, they tend to love us unconditionally without any sort of reasoning. So I can totally appreciate this kind of concept of wanting to hold on to something that, is ready to be let go of. But
Absolutely.
even more
And if
interesting
like,
is the oh, go ahead, Tim.
well, no, I'm saying if given the opportunity, wouldn't you? So while I was actually writing this, my grandmother on my mother's side contracted COVID, and she was already pretty sick and ill. And everyone on my mother's side of the family are doctors or in the medical profession. They're very intelligent, kind of well-rounded people, and they refused to let her go. They kept her on machine despite the diagnosis. And eventually, the conversation was like, why are we doing this? Her quality of life is going to be so poor at the end of this. But no matter what, they couldn't separate the personal from the professional. And I always thought that it's like, if we had the ability to hold on to the ones we love, wouldn't we, you know, do whatever it took?
Yeah, I think we'd have to be convinced not to, right? It's almost like it's not so much that we would even fight it. We would be probably need to be having a voice of reason on the other side explaining to us why it's not the right thing to do. And, my wife is in the medical field. She's a surgeon, so she has to have those conversations on occasions with family members. And that's the one thing she says all the time is that people will, despite what you tell them, right, will always act kind of differently. In some cases, or not always act differently, but in some cases will act differently just because they can't face what the inevitable or what's in front of them. And everyone has their reasons, right? But
Totally.
I think the point you make with the film, right, it kind of dabbles a little bit in the absurd, but also in the horror and the emotional side of it all. But you've been making films for over a decade, right? You've been making all kinds of films, both for television as well as the feature length and shorts. So I'm curious to know, kind of, as you've grown as a filmmaker, like what are some of the things you've noticed about your own growth as a creator?
Like every film, I'm learning something. In fact, my my last film, which is ironically actually my sixth movie, came out as my fourth film, if that makes any sense. Because
Yeah.
um, a lot of the movies I make are produced by studios, so they have a lot more money behind them as far as like finishing it and getting it to the finish line. Um, and every film, I learn something new, and I think that's really what I love about this craft and being um, a director and collaborator and a creator is there's always something to be revealed. If anything, over the years, I've learned to take out the space in between scenes for a long time because of restrictions on total running time. But then I just did a film with Anthony about living in the space between. So it's like you learn something through the process and then you do something to kind of like unlearn all that or try to do the opposite. And I feel like it's what's really great about film and create the creative expression of storytelling is that the rules that you establish are your rules. Um, and but that's the one thing that um, is very adamant in all of them is that you need to have a central theme. You need to have not a singular, but a very definitive thing of what you want to say, because that informs every critical decision that you make along the line. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was really important for me for Don't Let the Cat Out was kind of this like the illogical there's a lot of logic uh conundrums in this film, but when you're being chased, when you're panicking, um and when you're trying to avoid the inevitable, you make some of the silliest choices as you go down the rabbit hole. And I think that was something I really wanted to kind of focus on, with at least within the limitations too of what we were this was like a self-finance kind of endeavor, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much about like the growth is, and you can see it in different people's films, is that it does come back to this idea of what do I become good at, and then how do I challenge myself to try something different? Because I think the creative process, you know, is not about comfort as much as it is finding ways to be uncomfortable and learn and try something different. And you're right about people acting irrational in kind of irregular even when they're put under pressure. But there's also some amazing things that happen that our brains will kind of intrinsically do for us on our behalf because we're in like a fight or flight scenario. So I think you show kind of so much of this quick thinking that happens to the individual. In this case, your babysitter is put through their paces, if you will. But
Yeah.
they come to these realizations quick enough and in a real enough way where you're along with them as opposed to feeling like, did I miss a scene or is there a plot point that isn't uncovered? You're there with them the whole time. And um, this is I know the budget on this one, being self-financed, you don't have all the money in the world. But moving aside kind of the budget side of things, what other kinds of challenges did you have to overcome in the production process? I'm particularly thinking about some of these costumes and,
Oh
setups
yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, the costume was tricky. It was it was formed for their bodies. Anthony had to was it was it's physically grueling. Um, you know, you watch like an action film and you're like, "Oh, it's so great watching these actors kind of perform these things." But in a way, you have to be incredibly athletic for these sequences. There are takes where we have Anthony running 50 yards, full sprint, but then also simulating injury.
Yep.
So, in all of that motion, it's an in unnatural human movement. That takes a toll on your joints, on your body. And I mean, Anthony's young, but when we had him in the harness,
Yeah.
the S&M harness, that was a real harness. He was tied. In fact, when at the end of the actual sequence, and this is like one of our things was like, hey, do you want to relax, rest for a little bit? The thing is, it took like 15, 20 minutes to do the thing.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And so he was like, no, 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 let's just keep going. Um, like the last take, like when we were releasing it, he cramped. He had a Charlie horse in the middle of the
Oh,
set. Like it looked like there was like a little gerbil living inside his quads.
oh,
I was
the
like,
irony.
oh, and I know that pain. I've experienced that pain. So I'm over there like rubbing the muscle,
Get the
trying to
elbow
push
out.
it
Just
out. Yeah, and he's just got to grit through it. It's like it's like, and I feel guilty because I'm the director. And so I have to take care of my actor. But the other issue is Anthony's also the producer, so he's like trying to save time. Like there were times where I was like, someone would have to go, hey, do you think it's okay if Anthony goes to the bathroom? I was like, of course it is. It's like, why not just go? But he's very conscious about like making sure that he's not the delay in the sequence. And I love him to death for this because that's how dedicated he is. But at the same time, it's like, Anthony, I can see on the screen that you're stressed about. And while this conveys really well, we don't really need it right now. Please go to the bathroom.
right.
Because going to the bathroom when you're wearing that suit means that you're gonna have to. So those are some of the challenge. The other is that we had to shoot this all at night because we actually did not have the money to fully black out a house. A multi-story home with like glass, with would have cost thousands of dollars to black out because you would have had to make trusses and like cover the windows. And like I unfortunately come with a background in cinematography, so I know that just putting a black curtain over something
Yeah.
isn't gonna it doesn't look good. It just you need like a separation between the window and a somewhat of an ambient light source in order to simulate that you are in a living space. And so we had to shoot everything at night, which is so difficult because one of the challenges of shooting at night, um, it is you can't buy anything because everything is
Right.
closed. So everything has to be, and plus everybody is working at 75% capacity. When you are deprived of sleep, you're not as sharp as you are during the day. And
Yeah.
so that takes a toll on everybody, and mistakes happen, and you just have to handle it with grace and understand that we're all in the same boat. But what was great about this film and this incredible crew in Louisville is how everybody was so willing to help each other, and we were there to build each other up and really put out the best movie that we could with our limitations.
I mean, I think you can tell there's a sense of camaraderie and connection just based off the way everyone interacts with each other in the film, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much, just the characters that you're introduced to, especially some of the people that come in later in the film. You're like, you only get a few seconds to get to know them, but you already kind of have a very clear understanding of who they are within, a few minutes. And I think some of that comes from the way they interact with each other and the way that transponds and or transpires into like what we see. But this is your, second trip back to Fright Fest in 2 years, which is insane. And first, again, a heavy congratulations on that. But also, how does it feel to have another film at this festival just around 12 months later?
It is. It is. I've gone to a couple of festivals. It might be my favorite. Because the audience is so sharp, they're so friendly, but also they're so passionate about horror and genre film in general. And so it's a true honor, and we're very grateful that Alan and Ian and them have invited us back. Um, and it feels so cool, and to have people support you in your crazy endeavors, because it's like, you know everyone a lot of people are out there trying to get their, how hard it is, the hours that you spend on this, and then sometimes it's like, if it doesn't land or resonate anywhere, it's like, what is it all for? But Fright Fest truly does make it all worth it. um and plus it's such a cool theater. It's so intimidating how big that theater is. But also in the middle of London. You're in the heart of London. It's Leicester Square. For folks who aren't familiar, it's like Times Square on
Yeah.
steroids. It's like right next to Piccadilly. It is. Um, everyone's so many people, and then Soho. It's all there, and people who flock to this festival are like the early tastemakers of horror. One of my good friend and neighbor Simon Barrett, who did The Guest and VHS and the recent Godzilla versus King Kong, was like over the moon when he found out when we first got in last year, because he said that he attributes Fright Fest to be the first domino for The Guest, because they had been
Wow.
sending The Guest to all these other film festivals, and it wasn't being accepted, and it was just like, it wasn't being programmed until Fright Fest programmed it, and then all of a sudden, all the amount of invitations we get because we're playing Fright Fest is wild. It's every day I'm getting emails from other film festivals and be like, "Hey, we heard you're playing at Fright Fest. We'd love to send an invite to you." And so, it truly is. It's like the largest genre film festival in Europe. And so, yeah, we're just super grateful. And again, as I said, I love their breakfast.
I mean, that's good enough reason to go back is for the beans and toast. But I
Yeah.
also think like, what you're saying, I think will probably I think it would resonate with a lot of people in that, you do filmmakers, anyone that's creating, especially in a collaborative environment where you're not the sole kind of end all be all of something is that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the future will hold for your film or for your project. And you hope that it does find an audience or it does find some. But even the best films, right, like that do find that don't always get the recognition. That's why we have, stories about movies like The Thing that, ruined, in some ways kind of derailed Carpenter's career in the 80s a little bit, but is now a stone cold classic. Or, even Office Space in a totally different genre, like a movie that went wildly underseen for such a long time, ended up becoming the swan song of every Gen X and millennial in the workforce at the time.
Jimmy
Um,
Stewart.
So I my last question for you, Tim, is just, or maybe a second to last question, I take that back.
Yeah.
Um, for first time filmmakers that are going to be at Fright Fest this year, what advice would you have to give them about the experience and just the emotions, etc.?
Oh, make sure you go to a screening at the theater you're screening in beforehand. Because if you're in the main theater, you need to realize how big that room is. Um, and then kind of just take it all in. Second, I would say because I was nervous as hell in the first one, man. But luckily, Simon actually asked me to introduce Azrael, his film. Um, so I got to I'm not a public speaker, but I got to experience it before, so that I wasn't a nervous wreck when we got to go up on stage. Um, everyone there is enthusiastic and there for films. Talk talk to talk to them, and and kind of like be open to conversations. Go to the parties. Go to the Admiral, which is the pub that all the filmmakers and the audience attendees hang out at. It's like 2, 3 blocks from. Just ask someone; they'll tell you. Go to the filmmakers lunch or drinks that Ian and Alan and all of them set up. Yeah, but if anything, be ready to talk about your movie. Be ready to talk about the movies you want to make. There are a lot of distributors that go and other filmmakers, and it's yeah. Sorry.
No, I mean it's that those are great advice. And I'm also selfishly I'm asking because it's my goal to get to Fright Fest one year. So I'm going to take some of your advice and
Yeah, let's get
uh
you out there, Matt.
but that's it's on the wish list for next year. It's either that or Fantasia in Montreal. So we'll see which one it ends up being. But my last question for you is hopefully a fun one, but I've been told it's a little difficult, so feel free to throw a side eye at me if so. But if you were asked to program a double feature with Don't Let the Cat Out, what do you think would make a really good or fun companion piece with it?
Ooh, the Uncanny or Hausa,
Elsa, all
Japanese
right.
Hausa, House,
House, okay, okay.
Japanese film. Sorry, I say. My friends and I are always like, because in the Japanese, a lot of them when they say the movie house, they say house. So it's house. But yes, house or the uncanny. I would say maybe cat people. If you want to stick to the cat themes and
I
have a
mean,
bunch of
I
kids.
I think those would be a lot of fun. I mean, you could do like a full-on cat fest and throw Don't Let the Cat in there, but or
Yeah.
Don't Let the Cat Out in there. But Tim, I just want to thank you again for taking some time to speak. I know you've got a million things to do before you get ready for your trip, and so I'm appreciative that this is one of them. And remind folks that if you're going to be at Fright Fest this year, you can go and check out the film this Friday. It's one of the
Yes.
opening films of the weekend, so you can get a chance to check it out. And it's so delightfully weird, and it goes there in ways that every genre fan wants a movie to go. It doesn't hold back on the weird. So you've got
Yeah.
my vote of support, and
Thanks,
can't wait for
Matt.
other folks to see it, Tim. And
Appreciate you and thank you for having us. And if you come to the screening, we have some like free merch. This is like a little pin that we made. I don't know, I can't see it. And I would like have like these tiny little posters of the movie.
outstanding.
So and then the cast is gonna be there. Come and say hi. We're chill. And then come grab a pint with us.
And maybe if and I think the easy way to maybe your heart is saying we're going to go get breakfast and we're going to get a full English breakfast.
Do it.
No skimping on the beans. Um, So Tim, I'm again, thank you for this time. I can't wait for everyone to see this movie. For those that already have, they already know what they're in for, and can't wait to see what else you're working on because you've got a fan over here at Macabre Daily.
Thanks, bud. Well, let's
Thanks, Tim.
let's talk soon. I'd love to just talk about movies too.
Oh, you know what? If you when you're back from Fright Fest, we'll have you on the podcast and we can maybe put together like your five favorite animal films or something like that. We can
Let's
we could
do
do
it.
some we can make a whole theme out of it. But for now,
Yeah,
enjoy Fright Fest, enjoy the fun with the cast and the crew and everyone around you, and have a few pints for us as well.
do. We'll do. Thanks, Matt. Talk
Thanks,
soon.
Tim.